If you've been on the internet for more than 12 seconds, you've seen the new Flex. It's not a six-pack, it's a sensor on the back of someone's arm and a glucose graph that looks like the stock market on espresso. And the caption is always the same: I ate a banana and my glucose hit 142. Am I basically a ghost now? Today we're answering one question, with zero hype and maximum usefulness. If you're not diabetic, a CGM's a helpful longevity tool, or an expensive distraction with a side of data anxiety. Stay to the end, because I'll give you a simple, who needs it, decision tree and a 14-day protocol that turns a CGM into real behavior change instead of expensive entertainment. First, the honest headline. CGMs are medical power tools for diabetes, especially for anyone using insulin. But the world changed when CGMs started going over the counter, meaning regular people can buy them to understand how food and exercise affect glucose. That's great for access. It's also how a useful tool becomes a confusing new hobby for perfectly healthy people. Here's the core thesis. For non-diabetics, CGMs can be helpful as a short-term mirror. The evidence for long-term outcomes, weight loss, cardiometabolic events, longevity, is still early and not definitive, even though a 2024 systematic review found favorable but modest effects from CGM feedback across adults with and without diabetes. So your goal is not wear a CGM forever. Your goal is learn fast, act fast, and then graduate. Now, why do CGM numbers lie sometimes? Because a CGM does not measure blood glucose. It measures glucose in interstitial fluid, the fluid between cells. When glucose is changing fast, right after food or during hard exercise, CGMs can lag behind blood, often minutes, sometimes longer. Think of it like watching a game on a slight delay. Same game, delayed highlights. Also, some OTC systems don't show a fresh number every 5 minutes on the main display. For example, Dexcom Stelo transmits frequently, but its app displays readings on a longer interval, meaning the latest value you see can be a bit old. So if you look down immediately after a meal and feel betrayed, congratulations. You've just met interstitial lag and display smoothing. CGMs are also accurate, but not perfect. One classic real-world artifact is the compression low. That's when you sleep on the sensor, local fluid shifts, and your CGM announces a dramatic low, while you feel totally fine. If you correct a false low with snacks, you can create a real spike and then blame the banana. This is why context matters more than one scary dot on a graph. And yes, devices can have problems. In late 2025 and early 2026, Abbott's Freestyle Libre 3 and Libre 3 Plus sensors were involved in a major correction and recall process after reports of incorrect low readings and serious adverse events. That's mostly relevant to people making treatment decisions. But the longevity lesson is universal. A CGM is a compass, not an oracle. Okay, so what does normal look like? Healthy people still spike. In the glucotypes research, a standardized meal, cornflakes and milk, pushed glucose above 140 mg per deciliter in 80% of participants. So a single spike does not diagnose anything. Patterns do, and context does, and your average risk profile does. Here's the longevity compass scoreboard. Influencers obsess over peak glucose, like it's an Olympic event. But for metabolic health, the more useful questions are, how often, how long, and how repeatable. How often do you spike hard? How long do you stay elevated? And do the same foods, on similar days, keep producing the same problem? We're not chasing a perfect flat line. We're hunting your biggest avoidable spikes and your easiest fixes. Now the decision tree, who gets the highest ROI from a CGM? Group 1 is hidden risk people. If you have belly fat, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, low HDL, fatty liver, sleep apnea, a strong family history, PCOS, a history of gestational diabetes, or your fasting glucose or A1C is creeping up, a CGM can reveal patterns an average can hide. Group 2 is people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, especially those not using insulin. ADA guidance has increasingly recognized that CGMs can benefit some adults with type 2 diabetes not using insulin, largely by improving engagement and glycemic outcomes. Group 3 is the N=1 scientist personality. You can test, learn, and move on without spiraling. And Group 4 is active people who want to experiment with fueling and reactive dips, without treating the data like a moral judgment. Who should probably skip it? If your basics are strong, normal A1C and fasting glucose, solid waste, regular training, mostly whole foods, decent sleep, and alcohol isn't a nightly ritual, a CGM often becomes expensive reassurance. And if you're prone to anxiety, perfectionism, or disordered eating, be cautious. A CGM can turn food into a math test. Nobody gets a longer life from being afraid of blueberries. Before you buy a sensor, do the cheap, high-signal stuff. Measure waist circumference and blood pressure at home. Get fasting glucose and A1C. If you and your clinician agree it's appropriate, consider an oral glucose tolerance test, because fasting labs can look fine while post-meal control is not. The ADA defines prediabetes as an A1C of 5.7 to 6.4, fasting glucose of 100 to 125, or a 2-hour OGTT of 140 to 199. If you're in that zone, a CGM experiment becomes much more meaningful. Now, if you're going to use a CGM or longevity, here is the only way I recommend it. A 14-day CGM challenge. 2 weeks, not forever. You are trying to identify your top 3 spike triggers and your top 3 spike reducers. Days 1 to 3 are baseline. Eat normally. Don't perform for the sensor. Write down sleep, stress, and alcohol, because those 3 variables can swing your glucose like a wrecking ball. If you skip this, you'll blame oatmeal for what was actually a 4-hour night and a chaotic day. Days 4 to 10 are experiments. Repeat each test 2 or 3 times on similar days, because one-offs are noise. Test 1. Swap the carb source in a familiar meal. Oats versus cereal versus sourdough, same protein, same time of day. Test 2. Meal order. Eat fiber and protein first, carbs last. Research on meal sequence shows it can reduce the post-meal glucose rise, and your CGM will make this painfully obvious. Test 3. The post-meal walk. Walk 10 minutes after your biggest meal. Studies show even brief walking after meals can lower the glucose peak, and it's one of the highest leverage things you can do. Test 4. Sleep. Compare a well-slept night to a short-slept night. Controlled studies show sleep restriction reduces insulin sensitivity, and many people see worse spikes the next day when sleep is poor. Day 11 to 14 are your playbook. Keep favorite foods, apply the 1 or 2 rules that worked best. Maybe it's walk after dinner. Maybe it's carbs last at breakfast. Maybe it's cereal is a weekend food. You're not becoming perfect. You're becoming strategic. How do you interpret without overreacting? Well, there are 4 rules to follow. Rule 1. Look for repeat patterns, not one scary peak. Rule 2. Compare similar days, because training, stress, and sleep matter. Rule 3. If the CGM reads low, and you feel fine, consider compression or lag. If you have symptoms or you're concerned, confirm with a fingerstick. And Rule 4. Remember the blind spot. A CGM does not measure insulin, inflammation, ApoB, blood pressure, VO2 max, or strength. It's a slice of healthspan, not the whole pie. So, a CGM's worth it for longevity. If you're higher risk, trending toward pre-diabetes, or you want a short structured experiment, they can be absolutely worth it. If you're low risk and already doing the basics, spend that money on food quality, sleep quality, and daily movement you'll actually keep. And if you're the type who will panic at normal physiology, skip the sensor and build your foundation first. Longevity is not a glucose flatline contest. Quick safety note. If you're seeing repeated very high post-meal peaks that stay elevated a long time, or fasting values that look high day after day, don't self-diagnose from a wellness wearable. Get formal labs and talk with a qualified clinician. A CGM is information, not a diagnosis. If this helped, Hit like, subscribe, and share it with the friend who thinks one pasta dinner means they need to live in the forest. Check the description for Amazon affiliate links that match today's topic, and our Longevity Compass book on Amazon KDP. That book is the fastest way to support the channel, and it's built around the exact, do this, not that, frameworks we use here every week. Final takeaway. A CGM is not a badge of honor. It's a temporary lens. Use it to find your triggers, apply your fixes, and then get back to living a life that's strong, calm, and ridiculously hard to kill.